Let's start. Okay, let's start. I guess from chapter, perhaps not one. I'm kind of interested in your teenage years.
Yeah.
So one thing that you mentioned on Pete's podcast was that you had certain issues related to anorexia and bulimia, and you said you were shuttling between one condition and the other. So first of all, I guess we should give people some definitions. Perhaps they don't know the conditions. Would you like to kind of outline the difference between anorexia, bulimia, what they are?
For sure. Anorexia is a condition. It's a disease where it's body dysmorphia as well, but where you control what you eat, you control your diet, and you control what goes into your body. And it's very often that the two are mixed, that they are combined.
Okay.
Because bulimia is where you either throw up or you use laxatives so that whatever you put into your body is very quickly expelled.
Okay.
Now, it's an eating disorder, and there are various eating disorders. And I was a teenage girl. I was going through some really challenging times with family.
When you say teenage, what age are we talking about?
How young? I would have been 13. So 13 and the whole package with that. So then at one point when I was about 16, I went for about 9 months on a 300 calorie a day diet. And I got down to, I don't know what that is in kilos, but it's 6.5 stone. It is.
Okay.
Is
6.5 stone in kilos, please. Okay, yeah, because that's not a metric that we're used to. If it was pounds, I know it's like division by 2.2.
Well, that's 14 by 6 plus something. You do the math.
So it's 41 kilos. Jesus
41
Christ.
kilos, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So that I was quite unwell.
Yeah.
And then I swung between that and then that went on for about 8 years. And it's one of those conditions that almost
8 years?
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
And it almost always stays with you. You recover, but it's you can be fully recovered from eating disorders, but you'll still have your weak points.
Right.
And at that point, sort of for 18, 19, I went off to live in the US for a short period of time. And that gave me the freedom that I needed to kind of stand on my own 2 feet and start recovering. But until I really became healthy, I was well into my 20s.
Just a small digression. My sister also had issues with bulimia. She's discussed this publicly, which is why I'm comfortable sharing it. And what changed it for her was she had taken up work, I think, in Tunisia with Corinthia at some point, or one of those companies anyway. And my sister, who is a square, she's never smoked a cigarette, like so seldomly got drunk, never even so much been in room with drugs and stuff like that. But she got hammered for like 3 days straight, just drinking whiskey for 3 days straight. And after those 3 days, she relinquished the thought of ever being bulimic again. That's how she got over it, like alcohol therapy. She never went back to alcohol or anything like that. Like the few times that I see my sister drink, I get really concerned because like one shot is a lot. By the second shot, I'm picking her up and we're discussing our childhood and maybe now we're both weeping and But it's that. What reminded me of that was that you said you went away, and that's how you kind of like started standing on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
But before we get to you kind of making your way out, what drew you in?
Into eating disorders?
Yeah.
We have generational trauma in our family. And that just basically passes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And by 11 years old, I was self-harming and cutting on my arms. You can still see the marks.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
how long have those marks been with you?
Since I was about 11, 12. So the generational, I'm the middle child of obviously a family of 3. 3 children, 2 brothers, and just a lot of stuff was difficult for me to process, and a lot of stuff that was going on in our family. I have peace with my parents and now, but there was a lot of stuff that was directed towards me. But at the time it was very difficult, very difficult.
How many siblings do you have?
2 brothers, one older, one younger.
And you were being raised in which part of London?
So by this point, we had moved out of London by my teens to what I like to call the country, but most people call Essex. for reasons that I'm not going to go.
Oh, good.
And it was a beautiful part of the world to grow up in. It really, really was. We were out on the coast, by the beaches, in the countryside. And I think that was one of my saving graces, is that I could go out on a bike after school and just be out in the country. But those traumas, those childhood traumas, the relationships I had with my parents and with my brothers and so on, really, really put me in a place where I was ill-equipped to deal with life's challenges.
Wow. Okay. While you're going through this, did you have any support structure at all?
Well, when you're diagnosed with eating disorders, you do, even back then, we were talking about, good grief, let me do the math, something like late 80s. So there was counselling that was offered, but late 80s counselling maybe not be where it is today.
Right.
And I do remember going with my mum to counselling, and my mum said, "I'm so glad I'm here because I really need to know how to deal with this situation." And the counsellor said, she's the one that's getting the counselling. You're here to keep her company, and that sort of thing. So it was a very challenging childhood. I was a tomboy. I really had a lot of challenging issues as a child. Yeah. And they came into being through, they were physically evident through self-harm and eating disorders.
Yeah, which is also a form of self-harm.
Absolutely.
I would say.
Well, eating disorders is all about control. When so much is out of control around you, it's the same as self-harm. A lot of people would say self-harm is about you hurting yourself. It's actually not. It's you expressing, being able to show to yourself what you're going through, the pain that you're going through. And eating disorders is about being able to control something. Yeah. Stuff is happening to you that you don't have control over. Yeah. You can't deal with. You're not mature enough. You're a teenager. Or a child. You're going through stuff that really children shouldn't have to deal with. And the only thing that you can control is what goes into your body and what stays in your body. And that becomes a very powerful tool. Yeah. And it's your comfort to control what's happening to you.
Yeah. I think my sister expressed it also kind of like similarly, that it's about like it's not so much like the body, there's more dysphoria. Body dysphoria, right?
Did I say dysmorphia? Dysphoria is what I meant. Yeah.
Body dysphoria is the right term
dysphoria.
For it, right? Yeah, it wasn't so much that because at a point, like, you just become so skinny, it's not even attractive. It's more of everything in my life is all over the place. At least I can get this, under some sort of some semblance of control, and I can exert some control in life, and it becomes very addictive.
Hugely addictive. Yeah.
You can control at least that part. And did your parents kind of? I know you said like they had a difficult time kind of understanding, but was there any intervention? Because 8 years is a long time. Or anyone else? Maybe not a parent, maybe a friend, a cousin, a grandparent.
I remember. I was probably about 13 or 14 years old, and my godfather. Now, I'm Protestant. Sorry. So when I say godfather, I mean a parent, a family friend who back in the day when you called every family friend uncle and aunt. This was my Uncle Ron. He passed away, unfortunately. But I remember sitting there one day around his house, and there was a youth group there, and he looked at me, and he looked at my arm, and he said, "What's going on?" And no one ever asked.
Fuck.
But this is the 80s, and this is the 80s in the UK. Yeah. And I said, "Nothing, I had an accident." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, yes. And he said, "Listen, if you want to talk about it." But that was the only conversation. That really was the only conversation.
And you didn't pursue it?
No.
What did you feel when he asked you that?
Seen. Yeah. Seen. And I think that's probably why what I'm doing right now is so important.
Mela, tlaqna?